In this video, I get to chat with Kevin Moeller, the CEO and co-founder of Passbolt, the password manager that I use for everything. This is a sponsored video. In full disclosure and transparency, it's featured, it's dedicated, it's all for Passbolt. They paid to be here, but I think it's a really, really cool conversation because we chat about some of the reservations and hesitations and doubts that people have for a whole lot of security mechanisms, whether it's running antivirus because they think someone's spying on them, or using a password manager because it feels like a centralized location, like all the risk bottled up in one location. Hey, they're all things to chat about and they're all things to dive into. So with that, I'll get out of your way and I hope we can have some fun chatting with Kevin from Passbolt. Alrighty, well, hey, how's it going, Kevin? It's super good to see you again. Hey, we were just spending some time together over at RSA, that crazy security conference.
Yeah, it was crazy.
And I thought, you know what, that might make for some good conversation or chatter, either in, I don't know, what we're seeing in the cybersecurity industry and technology as a whole. Because I had this weird interaction at one point, or at least just kind of brought me back down to earth, because I was conversing with someone talking about, you know, a lot of security mechanisms and things that we just tend to use for good defense on our computers and how we use the digital world. And I had said, like, hey, what are you rocking for antivirus? Like, do you have that in place? And they had said, like, what antivirus? Like, no, I don't use any antivirus. I don't want any antivirus because I don't want them like spying on me. And I was like, wait a second, that's not how that works. And it's such a, I don't know. It reminded me that there are folks in cyber, or that are not in cybersecurity and just don't have the same understanding that we do. Have you ever sort of encountered that, or is there like some weird hesitation and reservation that normal people have for a whole lot of tech?
Well, you know, it's a very interesting question. And before we start, I want to add thanks for having me in your podcast, John. It's like super cool. And I really enjoyed our interactions at RSA in the middle of the craziness. So thanks a lot. Yeah, I would say, you know, working in the cybersecurity, obviously you are facing a lot of different feedback, you know, given by all types of people. The understanding of the security world is not always the same. And I think the fundamental problem in the industry is that security and cybersecurity products in general have troubles at making themselves sexy.
Yeah.
And the ones that are the most sexy, I would say, are very often not the most secure, you know, because they are surfing a hype and they are probably attacking the market based on arguments that will surf on this hype, you know, that will be like more marketing, like we are end-to-end, we are zero trust, and they're really trying to convince everyone with this promise. But as a result, you see also a lot of hacks. A lot of them, you know, don't deliver on the promise. And I think this makes people freak out and they don't know where to look anymore. So that's the first problem. Cybersecurity is a complex world, and not everyone, you know, is up to speed with like, okay, how does it work? How should how should a security model be designed? What do I need to look for? And obviously, if you look at the web page of a cybersecurity product, you very naturally will try to understand the value proposition in a few minutes if you're not an expert in cybersecurity. So you will look for the keywords that you can understand. And this makes it even more complex. So I don't know what you think about it, but my point is it's a complex problem. And what you probably need are more people to vulgarize complex problems, you know, more people to really look into the fundamentals of products, even complex products, and making it easy to understand for the common user and the common people.
So if I may, super cool to get tactical here. You are working at Passbolt, right? And Passbolt is your baby. Hey, that's the password manager. But I know, again, some people might be scared of using a password manager, either just because they don't understand all the different things and really what that might mean for their own security. So if I may ask you, I'm curious, how do you or we all together here as a community sort of remove that stigma, or I don't know, how do we combat a lot of that weird confusion, misunderstanding, and misinterpretations? Can I ask what you guys do?
Yeah, sure. So we see, first of all, is like this is a very interesting moment in our industry, password managers, because a few of our competitors got hacked. So we really do not take pride, you know, in comparing ourselves to others, like mentioning them in what we do better and why they are terrible with their security model. So I will not mention them here. But for sure, I think in this industry, a lot of people took security for granted. And I'm talking about the users here. You know, we're in Now that a few of them got hacked, basically, suddenly everyone started wondering, oh, but wait a minute. Does it mean that password managers are not secure by default? But I thought it was the first feature of a password manager. So the camera is really changing angle, and everyone is like back to question number one: is the password manager that I'm using secure? And this is very funny because for a long while at Passbolt, we were really trying to educate the organizations we are working with and the people contacting us that are using Passbolt on the importance of assessing the security first for a password manager. And for very long, our experience has been that, okay, fine, security is important, but what about the features? Do you have this feature or do you have that feature? And sometimes we are explaining, I'll take an example. For example, we do not have an offline mode because we do not want that random users have the entire password database on the loose on their computer, then they disconnect themselves from the internet, and then the administrator has no visibility over what's going on with these passwords.
Right.
But for a very long while, we were talking to people who were basically telling us, I don't care, I want an offline mode, because this is better for usability. And then when you start explaining, okay, but have you understood the consequences of the security? Do you know that if a user leaves your company, has a copy of all the passwords available locally on his computer, and you will not even be informed of it, because there is no more connection between the client and the server. So I think this is the way we are addressing this with Passbolt. We have changed the way we communicate since a few months, and now we are calling ourselves security first password manager. And there is a reason for that. It is because for every feature that we implement at Passbolt, we speak first about security from the specifications phase up to the development phase. But also when we speak with our customers or free users, and we have a lot of them, we always talk about security first because this is the main concern. The reason why you want a password manager is to solve your security issues. You do not, of course, features are nice, but what you are trying to solve is your security. So let's speak about security first. Security is a complex problem. So the key word here is education and vulgarization. How do you make sometimes complex theory understandable by normal people? This is not an easy exercise. You need people who are smart with that. Even we are still learning a lot in the process, but for us, it goes through documentation and talks. Let's speak together. We will explain to you what's our view on the security and why we think you should deal with it in a certain way, mainly when it comes to your password manager.
Cool. With that, I think comes a certain amount of, the education and knowing what you're doing and what's happening. But I think, hey, for all their reasons, like Passbolt is open source, right? And you can literally go look.
Absolutely. Absolutely, yes. I almost forgot to mention, but so we are talking about transparency and education, right?
Yeah.
And the beginning of transparency is making your source code auditable. That's what we call auditable privacy or auditable security. We are not the only ones claiming it. Anyone can connect to our GitHub repository, audit our source code. And if, of course, you're not a security expert, you cannot read code, you can still rely on the community to do it on your behalf. And on top of that, at Passbolt, we are also working several times a year with independent security researchers. So a company that we have worked extensively with is Cure53, based on Germany. Top of the line pen testers, and in the last 24 months alone, they have audited the source code of Passbolt 10 times.
Nice.
And in terms of transparency, all the reports are public, available on our website. So this is for the world to see. That's our view on privacy. You make everything public, and then you let people go through it and make their own conclusion.
That's awesome. I really, really love especially your rationale for the offline mode versus the online mode. That makes complete sense. Hey, with an employee just walking away from a company, well, there's risk in that on its own. I hear another argument oftentimes though, well, isn't it a little bit risky to have all my secrets, passwords, credentials just centralized and stored in one place, in one individual location, one place, which is the nature of a password manager? Is that one that you tend to run into? Are there other struggle points that you hear people bring up? Can I ask, how, again, do you navigate a lot of that conversation? Because I know people are going to get their pitchforks out and start whining in the comments and all, but hey, I'd love to hear what you're thinking.
Well, in our case, it's easier than for most. foremost, I mean our competitors, because well, the reason why PassVault exists is because us, and I'm talking like me and my co-founders, we were running a digital agency before PassVault. And we had huge difficulties with our passwords. And obviously, we were looking for a password manager, but we didn't know that it was called a password manager back then. And one thing we had decided, even before looking for solutions, we knew that we did not want a centralized database on a cloud we can't control. I guess we were technical guys, a technical team. And as many technical teams, we come from the world of WordPress, Drupal, maybe running a GitLab, running many other components that you can control. It's inside your infrastructure. If you're not happy with the solution, you can fork it, you can modify it, you can write your own plugins. So we had this vision. We were like, okay, if we want a password manager, it has to work the same way as these solutions. But the difference between a password manager and a WordPress is that the level of security is absolutely not the same. So we're like, okay, not only we want to control our data, but we want a top-notch end-to-end security model on top of it. Obviously, when we looked into the available solutions in the market, it was not there. And that's the reason why initially we decided to build PassVault. It was not called PassVault. It was called our own solution, only for us. And it's only after we started using it with our customers and other partners of the company that we realized that a lot of technical teams were looking for alternatives. And that's how actually PassVault became a product and did not remain only for us.
Wow.
But to come back to centralization, well, PassVault is self-hosted. So indeed, you are still centralizing all your passwords in a single database at the business level, but it's inside an infrastructure that you can control. You can install it in AWS, GCP, or if you're not comfortable, you can even spin your own server inside your premises, put your own security rules, your own firewall on top of it, and control absolutely everything that enters and goes out. So it's centralized, yes, but the surface of attack is not the same as if you are using a cloud-based password manager. So that's the first thing. The second thing is most password managers in the market are actually encrypting all the data. So most password managers in the market are using a shared vault concept when it comes to password storage. So it means that if I want to share a password with you, what's going to happen is I'm going to create a vault and then put all the passwords that I want to share with you and probably the rest of the team in the same vault. And this vault will be encrypted only with one key, the symmetric key. And this means that in case of attack, once the attacker can get the content of this vault, if it manages to decrypt it, he has access to all the passwords stored in the organization. There is no granularity in the sharing. But in the case of PassVault, the way we are handling the security aspect is that we are encrypting one version of the password for each user using his private key. And this means that actually, even if you manage to break into the vault that is stored inside your company, you still need to get your hand on the secret key at the user level in order to be able to decrypt not all the passwords, only the passwords that were shared or encrypted for this user. And that's a second layer of protection. So that's I think these are two very good arguments. And I think, with the recent attacks, as I was saying, the focus of the camera has completely shifted. Mainly in Europe, we hear a lot more than before that organizations do not want a centralized solution anymore. After the recent hacks, we had the wave of customers telling us, we want to shift. We have understood something. We do not want a cloud-based solution, at least not for our passwords. So, and the way we are approaching this problematic at PassVault resonates very well with them.
That's all good to hear. And I think that's another absolutely incredible and solid point. So cool. Man, I love it. I love seeing all those reservations and hesitations and all the reasons that someone might be scared of some solution, some option here, just kind of be torn down between the education, the transparency, and the messaging. So kudos to you all on that, as always. I'd love to ask, how can folks get started with it? PassVault can be freely available, right? The community edition. And I know you've been really ramping up to make that even more accessible, more approachable with two-factor authentication. Is there more that you can kind of sing the praises of there? And I think, hey man, that should be a great wrap.
So there is one amazing folder that we brought down in the community edition recently, after lots of popular demand in the community. But I don't want to say harassment, but it was almost harassment. Folders is an amazing feature in the sense like you can really get the same experience as in Google Drive. You know, the way you organize your documents in Google Drive, where you can have a parent folder that you are going to share with your entire organization, and maybe you want a subfolder with some more restricted permissions. And then if you want a subfolder and you want to make it accessible even to more people, you have this flexibility and granularity in the access controls that make it extremely flexible organization-wide. So that we have implemented the same feature for the way people organize passwords into Passbolt. It took a lot of development. We are talking about almost 1 year of development at the time we made it. And Cedric, one of our co-founders, had to become a mathematician himself. You know, he started reading like PhD papers to understand, like, you know, how to organize this at a crypto level. And he did a fantastic job with the product team at implementing this feature. It was so costly that when we finally released it, we really we didn't put it in the community edition first. We put it in the paid edition of Passbolt, you know, because we were like, okay, this feature has costed us so much. We need to monetize it a little bit. So we did this for a year, and we heard a lot of people complaining about that. And I think they were right, you know, because this is a productivity feature. This is something that helps small teams organizing themselves. And the way we have structured our community edition at Passbolt is really like this. It's like the community edition helps small teams organize, like centralize, organize, and share their passwords together. And what we are selling with our paid edition is to help them scale and to help them be more compliant. So in this sense, the folders feature belongs to the community edition, and that's why we brought it down. And since we have brought it down, I think we got 500 more stars in a few days just because of that, just because of the excitement, you know, of people using it. I mean, oh, this is awesome. This is what I've been waiting for. And we have a lot of web agencies, IT agencies using our software. And I think these guys, they are working with a lot of customers and a lot of projects. And somehow it creates a very good fit with this feature because they can, you know, most of them come from KeePass.
Right.
And KeePass, that's how you use it. You have your folders on the left, you have your passwords on the right, and people, they put nice icons on each folder, on each password. They create an organization that reflects the way they manage projects in their company. And that's what they are trying to retrieve with more business-oriented password manager. So it's a nice transition for them to switch from KeePass and then running Passbolt and realizing that, okay, I can organize my projects and my customers the same way. So I think that's sorry, I talked a lot about folders, I realized, but that's because it's a very nice takeaway of the last few months. And obviously, our objective at Passbolt is really to make a community edition that is widely used. You know, we are focusing a lot on it. We want a maximum of adoption. We want to delight the businesses and the small teams that are using it. So there is a lot to do. Still, if you look at our roadmap, it's pretty impressive, you know, but we are taking these items one by one and really pushing them through.
Well, that's great. I mean, look, I use Passbolt. Passbolt is my daily driver password manager, if I can put those two phrases together, really. But like, no secret, like, hey, I'm building out kind of a small team for even just this cheesy YouTube stuff. Like, look, there's me. I've got a video editor. I've got sort of a sales manager individual. I've got someone that's helping run administration and logistics and planning and all that. So look, there's a small business in a way. But I love the fact that, look, I can get folders set up for socials, anything that needs to go out content wise. I haven't gotten to the point where I'm externally sharing passwords with like different clients and customers and all, but I don't know, just the fact that I can is lovely and without any fear or doubt on that. But I love seeing your roadmap and seeing all the incredible success and even running into you all at RSA. Like, man, it feels good to kind of be on that journey together in that transparency, in that education and message. So, well, hey, super duper cool. I think a very fun conversation. And thank you for, I don't know, even knocking down some of those other doubts and hesitations that everyone tends to have sometimes, whether or not you're thinking, oh, your antivirus is spying on you. Exactly. It's still a very, very worthwhile security effort. So thanks so much, Kevin. This has been great.
Thanks a lot, John. Always a pleasure working with you. And thanks for being one of our users and enjoying the solution. It's really good to hear.